You here, Mike?
How you doing?
Hey, what up? All right. So, well, do you dispute that this is a bait and switch, first of all?
From which side?
Mueller, of course.
Well, I definitely don't think it's a bait and switch from Mueller's side. I think a single aspect of his investigation was taken by the Trump administration and those that follow him and blown out to be like that was the focus. That this falls perfectly in line with the original investigation and isn't a bait and switch. It just didn't. It's not what the president and his supporters focused on, though. There's you would have to agree that the original Mueller investigation was multifaceted, right?
Well, I agree that he's on a fishing expedition, if that's what you mean. But I don't know what you mean by multifaceted.
Well, I mean, he investigated other things than just simply whether or not the president himself was a Russian collaborator, right? That was definitely looked into. We'll see what happens with that.
Well, I mean, he's basically on a fishing expedition. So far, nobody's ever been charged with collusion with Russia. So I'm just curious, do you think this is the thing that people have been disputing and calling a hoax? Do you think that we're saying that there aren't trolls, Russian trolls on Twitter? Is that the thing that you think is being disputed?
I think what you're doing right there, saying that this is about Russian trolls on Twitter, is exactly the problem. I mean, no one's disputing that there's Russian trolls on Twitter, but to say that that's all it is, or what happened is actually amounts to just there being a few more trolls on Twitter is just completely undermining what actually happened. I mean, it was 37 pages worth of stuff that happened, right? I mean, you've seen the summaries. I haven't read every single line of the page, but I definitely.
Oh, I did read the indictment. Actually, I had a good laugh out of it. So I was wondering, like, which piece of evidence in there had you convinced the most?
Convinced that the Russians intentionally tried to meddle with our election?
Yeah.
Well, the fact that they had a department set up for it, the fact that they had agents come in to find out the key topics in order to target their advertising campaigns. You agree that happened, right?
Oh, actually, it was a trick question. So actually, there was no evidence in the indictment. It was just pure allegation. Zero evidence was presented to support any of the accusations. They're all assertions.
Assertions by
Mueller.
By Mueller. So he's saying that these just happened, and I'm making unsubstantiated claims about them.
That's exactly what I mean. If you read the indictment, you can see that it is just an assertion. Zero evidence used to support any of these claims.
I mean, if you're going to call that the assertions, then I assume you would also say that the letter that just came out by the FBI agent that supports Trump is also just full of assertions without evidence, right?
I don't know which letter you're talking about.
The one that came out that was 4 pages, that was supposed to be the bombshell that told everyone that some of the information that began the investigation was funded. The initial research was funded by Hillary. Yeah, you think that?
So the Nunes memo, I would make this distinction. That was based on an actual document that people have read and put their name behind. So if it is the case that the Nunes memo is not accurate, that means at least 3 people are lying for sure. Senator Grassley, Senator Graham, and Congressman Trey Gowdy. So at the very minimum, we have people willing to put their name behind that document who wrote on that document that Andrew McCabe for sure testified to them under oath that the Steele dossier was the thing that was used in order to obtain that FISA warrant against Carter Page. So that's the distinction I would make, that we have actual people, U.S. senators and congressmen, not just random people. These are people who are willing to put their names behind these claims, not anonymous officials, not unnamed sources. These are real people who have actually seen this document in question.
Would you say that the special counsel for the United States Department of Justice is just a random person?
I would make this distinction with Mueller. We know that none of the people that he's ever accused of will ever be going to trial for anything. So he basically can make up whatever he wants because he doesn't have to prove any of these allegations.
So you're talking about the third. Of course, what you mean there is the 13 people that he indicted will never go to trial.
Of course
Well,
not.
they will if they get caught. They will if they get caught in America.
Well, they're not coming to America. Why would anyone show up to their own witch hunt?
But you're saying that
how would they even get a fair trial in America? Look at the anti-Russian xenophobic hysteria that's going on here in Washington D.C. to boot. Like where Trump got 4% of the vote. Do
you understand that it's not a witch hunt if they're actually doing magic, right? It's not a witch hunt if they're actually doing magic. So it's not
understand that every single witch hunt in history has produced witches. Now, do you think these were actual witches who were doing magic, or
no? But guess what? We have evidence. I mean, you say that it's just an assertions. So you don't. So you think that Facebook is lying about the Russians organizations that bought ads? You think they're lying about that?
Facebook never named the Russian government. They said Russian actors with people with Russian IPs. Facebook never named the Russian government, and neither did Twitter, because they can't produce any evidence to that effect, and nobody else can. Okay. Not even Mueller can demonstrate that this was, in fact, the Russian government.
So what you're saying is that you're not denying that it happened, right? You accept that it's true that it happened.
That what happened?
That what's in the most recent indictment is true.
Well, I don't know. That's what Mueller says, but he's not produced any evidence. So I don't know. Or maybe it's not true.
I'm going to assume that the special counsel for the United States Department of Justice, when coming forward in one of the most scrutinized investigations probably in our history.
Scrutinized? In what way, though?
In the entire public.
Who's seen what Mueller's up to? Who knows exactly what the hell he's up to? Besides
the Department of Justice, the Council of Senators.
Who else besides Rod Rosenstein? Because he ain't talking about it.
Okay, so I'm sure there are a number of senators that have seen it. They do. They do. I mean, that'd be a recipe for leakage. So you're just saying that no one has seen it.
Nobody knows what the hell he's up to. He's been operating in secrecy this whole time, and that's one of the problems with Mueller's.
It's not a problem for him to investigate something in this scale in secrecy, and it's not that he's being secret. This is just how investigations go. I mean,
no, there's not a single thing that Mueller has done so far that could not have been done by the FBI or DOJ. Everything that he's done so far seems to indicate, demonstrate, and prove that there's no reason at all for his office to exist in the first place. I mean, is there something that Mueller's doing that could not be done by the FBI or the DOJ? I mean,
yes, he has unprecedented government authorized access that the FBI or the CIA do not have. You have to agree with that.
Whoa, hang on. Say that again?
He has unprecedented access, and he has direct orders to follow different leads that would not otherwise be able to be followed as openly. You have to accept that. I mean, he's a special counsel.
I know. What kind of unprecedented access are you talking about?
So, I mean, there was okay. Is there an investigation?
There's 3 investigations.
Yes, but do you think that they call this one a special counsel for a reason? Why do you think they call it that?
Because they appointed a special counsel even when there was no reason to appoint a special counsel.
Okay, I know that you feel like there was no reason, but obviously some people did.
What crime was he investigating? What crime was he investigating?
He was in Russian potential Russian collusion and Russian interference with the election. Do you agree with that? That's what he was investigating.
Why did we need a special counsel for that? I mean, you can't explain to me why that would require a special counsel.
I can't explain that to you. So what would you think would require a special counsel if the potential people that are going to be investigated is the president of the United States? You don't think that would require a special counsel?
Well, hang on a second, because in his appointment letter, let me read it off to you. When he was appointed, Rod Rosenstein said, the special counsel is authorized to conduct the investigation confirmed by then FBI Director James Comey in testimony before the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. Now, remember, Trump himself was never under investigation. James Comey.
You're missing the important part. I have it pulled up right here. Subsection 1, any links and or coordination between the Russian government and individuals associated with the campaign of President Trump. Okay? So President Donald Trump. Again, is Donald Trump associated with the campaign of President Donald Trump? Yes or no?
Yes hang on a second. Yeah, he is, but let me respond to that. If Trump wasn't under investigation, and the reason why he had to appoint special counsel in the first place was to continue the FBI's investigation, it doesn't make sense to then say, well, now Trump is under investigation because we appointed the special counsel.
What happened to James Comey?
He got fired.
By who?
Rod Rosenstein wrote a letter of recommendation to President Trump saying, please fire James Comey.
Okay.
So President Trump
got fired. He got fired. Do you agree with that?
As per the recommendation of the Attorney General and the Assistant Attorney General, yes.
He got fired, but they didn't. They wanted, if we accept what you're saying, is they wanted him fired, but they did not obviously want the investigation ended. Do you agree with that?
Well, that's the suspicious thing. He's telling Trump to fire Comey, but then he appoints a special counsel because Trump fired Comey. That doesn't make any sense to me.
It seems like there's, they have reasons that we don't know or they haven't disclosed. Do you think that is?
I think there's been a lot of shenanigans going on at the FBI and DOJ, and we're only scratching the surface. I mean, thank God Congress and the Inspector General are actually investigating this shit, because otherwise we never would have got word of this. We wouldn't have known a damn thing if Congress and the Republicans in the House Intelligence Committee weren't on it and weren't investigating all the corruption and collusion going on at the FBI and DOJ. I mean, listen to this.
It's not corruption and it's not collusion going on at the FBI and the DOJ. It's not collusion. They all work for the same company. They all work for the same government.
6 people have already been forced to resign or move to Siberia for their collusion, corruption, and anti-Trump bias. That's 6 people already, and we're talking about top-ranking officials such as Bruce Orr and the Deputy Director of the FBI, Andrew McCabe. So the corruption and the collusion goes pretty high up into the FBI, and you have to be a complete political partisan not to realize that this is a very serious issue.
Serious issue that if somebody is not pro-Trump, that they get moved to Siberia? I mean, that seems like a pretty serious issue.
Okay, so by not being pro-Trump, you mean having an actual animus and hostility and hatred towards Trump and his supporters, right? That's what you mean by not being pro-Trump?
That's assertion. That's not been demonstrated.
No, those are text messages that were found by the Inspector General.
And the text messages were so severe that they had to be sent to Siberia?
Well, we're talking about human resource, going from number 2 at counterintelligence to human resources. That's the FBI equivalent of Siberia. He's being moved away in a very shitty kind of way.
So do you think, all right, so then your position is that if we grant that what you're saying is true, that there are individuals, there were only 6 so far, right? 6 that have been moved. Well,
including the Deputy Director of the FBI.
So you're saying that Mueller is also anti-Trump.
I think it's transparently obvious. If you look at the team that he's put together, we're talking about big-time Democratic donors. 0 of them donated to the Trump campaign. So this all seems to be going in one direction. And the content of the team that he's put together are people familiar with like tax fraud and money laundering and things like that. So it's transparently obvious to me that this all has to do with Trump, right? If Hillary won the election, there would be no special counsel, there wouldn't be a Russian hoax, there wouldn't be a Russian investigation. This would be a complete non-story because nobody gives a shit.
This is where I think you're wrong.
Why am I wrong?
If Hillary had won, there would still be a Russian investigation into the meddling with the election because that happened. You agree that happened, right?
Well, no, because when you say Russian investigation, do you mean there would be 3 investigations? Do you mean that we'd have 24-hour news coverage of this thing? Do you mean that we'd have a special counsel who spent $20 million on it? No, probably not. It would be something similar to Trump's voter fraud commission, which I'm sure you've heard nothing about over the last year and don't know what the fuck they're up to. That's basically.
I thought they disbanded because the states
they did because they didn't find shit. Just like Mueller needs to be disbanded. Exactly, great point.
Well, no, they got disbanded because the states refused to send them the information that they requested because it was unconstitutional. That's a little bit different.
Oh, so then maybe we need a special counsel to investigate whether or not there's millions of illegal voters, right?
All right.
We got to get to the bottom of this conspiracy, I'm sure.
So I think one thing that it seems like you're ignoring some of the things that's happened over the last year. The reason that there have been 3 investigations are because of Trump and his people, right? There was one investigation. What happened to that investigation? The person who was doing the investigation, what happened to him?
Oh, the one where he said that Trump wasn't under investigation, that one?
Well, I'm just saying, what happened to that? The leader.
What happened to him is the attorney general and the assistant attorney general thought he should be fired, so Trump fired him. I mean, his 2 bosses thought he should be fired, so his third final boss.
I guess I just am not understanding the distinction between when you're saying 1 and then 2. That that's the same investigation, right? That just different people are heading it because for whatever reason, the one individual got removed.
Well, yeah, but you have to remember there are only 2 people above the FBI director. Well, 3 if you count the president. There's the attorney general and the assistant attorney general. Both of them thought Comey needed to go. Trump agreed with them. So his 3 bosses all agreed that this guy needed to go.
And then you think that there a new investigation started? It seems like that's the same investigation, right?
If Trump is under investigation, it must be a new one because Comey testified under oath quite clearly that he told Trump 3 times that he wasn't under investigation. And then he lied. So then Comey played this charade for months, pretending as though, we can't comment on ongoing investigations, even though he's clearly done that in the past with Hillary. He's clearly exonerated her before he ever investigated her. He's clearly commented on when people are not under investigation, which Trump wasn't. But he wanted to continue this charade and, continue as though he was someone important and that he was doing something, noteworthy. So
you're talking about Comey, right?
Yeah, he refused to come clean with the public and tell them the truth that Trump wasn't under investigation. People got tired of his bullshit and him playing games, and so they recommended that he be fired, and Trump fired him.
Okay, and so but they thought the way he was handling the investigation was poorly, given the fact that they think according to Trump, he handled the investigation into Hillary poorly.
Well, according to the attorney general and the assistant attorney general as well.
Okay, I mean, but both the attorney general and the assistant attorney general thought that he was not very good as an investigator. We can agree with that, right?
In regards to his handling of Hillary's email investigation, yeah.
So they thought that this investigation was so important that they wanted to remove him and put somebody else in.
But that's speculation. You're just asserting that. You don't know that.
You're making the argument.
No, I said Hillary's email investigation. So they wanted him gone for that specific reason.
Okay, and they had already agreed to this investigation to begin, the one into Russia.
But that doesn't mean that this had, regardless, that he was still responsible for that investigation. So regardless of whether the Russian thing was going on, they still wanted him gone for that.
And they could have let this one go, but instead they brought in a different special investigator. Right.
Yeah, that's extremely fishy to me because Rod Rosenstein recommended to Trump that Trump fire Comey. And then, ostensibly that's the reason he appointed Special Mueller because he did the thing which Rosenstein recommended that he do. That doesn't make sense
to me that they hired Mueller so Mueller wouldn't have to be the acting director of the FBI. Right. Or, they had somebody else become the director of the FBI. Right.
No, McCabe would have been acting director. He's the guy who had to resign for his role in all of this bullshit.
So, but the director, the FBI director, James Comey, was handling this investigation, right?
Yeah, and Trump wasn't under investigation.
But so just follow me here. So the director of the FBI was handling this investigation. Director of the FBI gets fired, right? You agree with that? I'm not saying that has any. I'm just
he's responsible as the director. I don't know that he was personally involved with anything, but
okay. So whoever was handling that, he was the lead on that investigation, right?
Well, so Peter Strzok, yeah, the anti-Trump FBI agent, yeah, he was actually in charge of the counterintelligence investigation. So yeah, it does lead all back to a corrupt agent colluding against Trump.
In order for this investigation to be unbiased, they bring in an independent special counsel that isn't linked to the FBI, that doesn't have history with Trump.
Robert Mueller was the former FBI director, so
but he wasn't the acting FBI director. It is not the acting FBI director, right? I mean,
is he supposed to unbiasedly and objectively investigate his former colleagues that he's worked with for many years, whose family knows, and things like that? I mean, give me a break.
You accuse me of speculation. Now you're just making speculation. You're saying that he's unprofessional. Are you saying he's unprofessional? That goes against what everybody says against him.
Well, hang on a second. Are you saying Jeff Sessions was unprofessional?
In what way?
Why should Jeff Sessions recuse himself?
Because he was too close to the investigation. I mean, that was the appropriate thing. That was he was involved in it. He was involved. Was he associated with President Trump's campaign? Yes or no?
Yes, and the former FBI director was associated with the FBI too.
Listen, so Jeff Sessions was associated with Trump's campaign. This investigation was investigating Trump's campaign. The only thing he could do,
why couldn't he investigate the Trump campaign?
Because the way that this is set up, it's unethical for him to do that.
Okay, but it's not unethical for Mueller to investigate the FBI, right?
No, because he's not part of the FBI.
Former director, and he would be investigating his friends essentially. That's not a conflict.
So who would do it otherwise?
I would say Trey Gowdy would be a great attorney general or FBI director or special counsel. Any one of those positions would be great.
And why? Why do you think that he would be better than anyone else?
I think he'd be great at getting to the bottom of the issue. He's a no bullshit prosecutor, and it would be very, very difficult for him for people to lie to him and get away with it.
So who do you think Mueller is investigating? I mean, according to this,
are you responding to Siegfried's comment right now?
Yeah, I'm asking you if that's right.
I would go back to his appointment letter. He's taking over the investigation confirmed by then FBI Director James B. Comey. But all the evidence which has emerged so far seems to indicate that he should recuse himself, because all the evidence is pointing right back to the FBI and all the corruption and collusion going on there.
Except for the entire document he just released that indicated 13 Russian individuals and 2 companies, right? Except for that document, that's not pointing back to the FBI.
Oh, yeah. So that's part of his fishing expedition. So if you had originally sold this and saying, we're going to appoint a special counsel to determine whether or not there's some Russian trolls on Twitter, that's exactly why I call this a bait and switch, because you're pretending as if that's the thing that people were disputing this whole time, that, we're saying, oh, no, it's impossible that there could be Russian trolls on Twitter. Like, no, we deny that to the end. That is not the thing that Trump or anyone has been disputing. And you know that. You know what the Russian hoax is. The Russian hoax is when you accuse the President of the United States of America and the Attorney General of the United States of America of working for the Russians and being some kind of Manchurian candidate or whatever fucking ridiculous, unhinged and deranged conspiracy theories which have led to these investigations.
Okay. So do you think the fact that Trump said that the mishandling of the Russian investigation was why he fired him matter?
I don't know. I can't say that for sure. All I can say is that the Attorney General and the Assistant Attorney General recommended that James Comey be fired. So what would be your rational basis for why Trump shouldn't fire him? If his other two bosses agree that he should be fired, and Trump goes by the recommendation of his deputies, who are unsatisfied with their subordinates' behavior and his work.
Well, the reason he shouldn't fire him is because he is being investigated by him. I mean, that's.
But he wasn't under. That's the thing. He was not under investigation.
But his campaign was. You agree with that?
Okay, so but what's the problem if he just fires him and McCabe takes over the investigation?
Did that happen?
No, because that's the thing that's fishy to me. Because Rod Rosenstein, the guy who recommended that he be fired, then appoints special counsel Mueller. That doesn't make sense. I think that needs to be investigated. I think we need a special counsel to investigate how all this shit started. We need a special counsel to investigate the FBI, the DOJ, and all the corruption and collusion going on between them and the Hillary campaign.
Okay. So basically what I'm getting from you, and you tell me if I'm off base, is basically you think the FBI is corrupt internally and is trying to undermine President Trump.
There are, in fact, corrupt FBI agents who are actually trying to undermine Trump's presidency. Yes, I believe that's already been demonstrated by the evidence.
Okay. And
now,
so
how many there are, I can't say for sure. We know two for sure. We don't know how many else there are.
But you do not believe that Russians that meddled with our election intentionally and on a large scale.
Okay, are you meaning to ask me the question, do I believe that there are Russian trolls on Twitter sharing memes on Facebook that are undermining our government? I would say, well, I'm doing that. So I imagine there's people in Russia doing it too.
Okay, so do you think, now that is one aspect, do you think that there are
I share memes on Facebook specifically designed to undermine and question the credibility of the U.S. government. So I imagine it's probably the case that people in Russia are also doing that.
Okay, and according to, let's see, I was listening to the Daily podcast this morning, okay? And he said that Russian individuals funded grassroots campaigns that also influenced Trump rallies in ordering to, bolster the idea of building cages, having people dress up as Hillary Clinton.
I read the indictment, so yeah, I got a good laugh out of that. I mean, was that.
Do you think that that's true or not true?
I don't know. I don't know that there's a reason that it couldn't be true. I know that Mueller asserted this to be true, but to me, that's not an extraordinary claim. That's not the same thing as saying the president of the United States and the attorney general are colluding with Russians in order to change the election outcome. That's a completely different kind of claim. Extraordinary claims are the thing that requires extraordinary evidence. If you turned your screen black right now and said, I'm wearing a red shirt, that's not an extraordinary claim, and I have no reason to doubt what you're saying. Maybe you are wearing a red shirt. It's totally inconsequential. Now,
do you think that evidence of that happened would justify an investigation into whether or not there were any links between or coordination between the Russians and the Trump campaign?
I don't know. I think if they had started, that's why I call this a bait and switch. If they had started this from the beginning and said, there might be some Russian trolls, and they might have been posting ads on Facebook that some of them were even pro-Trump to a degree, and also anti-Trump and pro-Hillary. I mean, they were posting all kinds of crazy shit. But some of these even were helping Trump. And even in one instance, they put someone in a cage with a prison suit, and it kind of looked like Hillary. And if you said that is the reason why we need 3 different investigations, why we need to spend $20 million, and why we need to have a 24/7 news cycle based on this big Russian investigation that's going on, I don't think anyone would have taken that seriously in the first place. I don't think anyone has ever disputed that there are trolls on fucking Russian trolls on Twitter. That's not what people are saying is a hoax. The hoax is the extraordinary claim, which is the very source of all of this. That's why it's important and why anyone should give a shit. If it doesn't lead back to Trump, then who gives a fuck?
I mean, who gives a fuck that the Russians were meddling in our elections, right?
Yeah, kind of like you don't give a fuck that Ukraine was meddling in our elections. I've not seen you express any kind of interest or outrage
You
over
say that Ukraine. I mean, this is just a rabbit hole. When you say that they're meddling in our elections, and how do you mean?
Spent tens of millions of dollars, so like way more than Russia.
Way more than Russia to do. And what were they doing? They were
trying to help the campaign, and you've never heard of it, and that's not.
No, I've never heard of it. Yeah.
Well, Google it when we're done. I'll post a link. In fact, you don't have to Google nothing. But so it's a known fact. It's for sure. Ukraine has apologized to the Trump administration, and you don't give a shit, and I don't give a shit either. Who cares?
Because they lost.
No, it's not important at all. Even if Hillary won, I'd be like, okay, well, Ukraine helped Hillary win. I don't think that's why Hillary won, so it's not important.
Okay, but you don't think that if there was, I guess that's the crux of it then, right? You don't think that any influence from Russia could have made a difference in whether or not Trump would win, right?
Well, the indictment specifically says that. So far we have zero evidence, and nobody's even asserted this. I mean, Mueller is asserting that these 13 Russians who will never face trial, which he never has to prove any of these allegations, he's asserting that they've done these things. To me, it's not really that extraordinary to say that there are Russian trolls on Twitter and they're fucking goofing off here in America. I mean, I do that, so I suspect it could be the case that they're also doing that. So that's not the thing that we're denying happened.
So you're calling it a hoax not because it's not true, but you're calling it a hoax because even if it is true, it wouldn't have changed the outcome of the election if it hadn't happened.
Which part about my position specifically don't you understand? When we talk about the Russian hoax is about the extraordinary claim. The extraordinary claim here is that the President of the United States and the Attorney General of the United States and other very, very high-ranking officials in the U.S. government are secretly working for the Russians. That's the extraordinary claim.
I mean, that is not the extraordinary claim. The extraordinary claim is that members of the Trump campaign during the election process were in collusion or working with the Russian government. That's the extraordinary claim. Not that the president is a Russian spy or a mole or anything, but that. So I mean, let's be specific now.
Okay, let's do that. So getting political opposition getting opposition research on your political opponent, that's collusion? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just clarifying that you agree with it, that the investigation is concerning the election itself and whether or not Russians colluded with members of the Trump campaign. Now, notice the special, I guess, the order itself that we read here doesn't mention the Trump presidency staff. It doesn't his units. It says the associated with the campaign of President Trump. So it ends at his winning. So the investigation.
What crime is he investigating? Exactly.
I mean, it is a crime to collude with another government.
Oh, okay. So
during a campaign.
So that's collusion, right? When you're getting political opposition research about your election opponent from Russians, that's collusion, right?
No, the crime is when you're making deals with another government in order to gain special favor, or if another government is giving you giving you information or helping your campaign in order to gain some sort of political favor with you. That is a crime. You agree with that, right?
Okay, so like what Ukraine did.
If you say so, I don't know. I'm not going to say that I know what is going on there. If you're saying that Ukraine gave a bunch of money to the Hillary campaign, I mean, I don't know that that's true. I don't see how that would have been possible to be true, that they could have given that much money.
Okay, so now it's monetary donations. Like, which one is it? Let's.
No. You're the one that said $10 million from Ukraine. So you're bringing the Ukraine.
They spent a lot of money trying to influence the U.S. election, and they apologized for that. They apologized, and now they're trying to recurry favor with the Trump administration because, like everyone else, like the Russians, they expected Hillary to win.
Yes, that should have been investigated if that's true. I mean, I don't know where you're getting that source. I thought I stayed pretty well up on political news, but I hadn't heard about that. So I don't. I guess the New York Times hasn't run a story on it.
I agree. You haven't heard it. But it's part of the narrative. right? The narrative.
Yeah.
If it doesn't have anything to do with Trump, it's not part of the narrative. The only reason this narrative even exists is because of Trump and no other reason. Nobody gives a rat's ass about fucking Russian trolls on Twitter and Facebook. This would not concern anyone at all if Trump didn't win the election.
I think you're mistaking the fact that it has to do with Trump, that it has to do with the person who won the election, right? So you don't think that there would be a problem with Ukraine and that influence if Hillary won the election? You don't think that there would be investigations into that?
No, I don't think that we would have three
with a Republican controlled House and a Republican controlled
I don't
Senate.
think we would have a special counsel investigating Russian influence. I don't think any of that would be going on right now.
You don't think there'd be a special counsel and investigating Ukrainian influence?
No, I think James Comey would have been fired and Abe would have been appointed FBI director, and that'd be that. I mean, we saw how they investigated the email thing. I mean, we saw how nobody wanted to get on Hillary's bad side and how everyone was afraid what would happen when she came to office. So, I mean, we can.
Okay. We got just 9 minutes left, so let me just go with this. You say that it's a hoax. Hoaxes have end games. What is the end game of this Russian hoax? If it's a true hoax, then it is to do something. It's a misdirect. It has something
entirely to undermine the presidency of Trump and cast doubt on his legitimacy and the 2016 election, and no other reason. And the analogy that I would give is that if we had three separate investigations on whether or not there were millions of illegal immigrant voters, and that's the reason why Donald Trump lost the election, and Fox News and Breitbart were reporting 24/7 the latest updates on the latest illegal immigrant voters, and then by the end of it, at the end, we end up finding 13 illegal immigrant voters, and then there's like, see, you guys said this whole thing was a hoax, that there were millions of illegal immigrant voters, but we found 13 fucking illegal immigrant voters, so that means this was all worth it, and we spent this $20 million and years of investigating to find these 13 fucking illegal immigrant voters. Now, I would be on the opposite end of that debate. I would say no. That entire illegal immigrant voters thing was a huge fucking hoax, and the only reason you did that is because Trump made up some bullshit about millions of illegal immigrant voters and no other reason.
Okay, so you think then that repeated investigations into something is a waste of time and it's only used as a hoax. So then you think that Benghazi was a hoax?
Well, yeah, I will qualify that by saying the real thing about Benghazi is the thing that Republicans agree with, and that's why we couldn't have a real investigation. Nobody's investigating.
But we had I think it was 5 fake investigations. Is that what you're saying? How many times did she have to?
Yeah. Those were all fake to me, because if we're not investigating why the U.S. ambassador was there in the first place and what the fuck he was doing there, then it's not a real investigation to me. If we're not investigating the fact that he was there when no other ambassadors from any other countries were in Libya at that time, and he was on some secret mission from Obama, what the fuck was he doing? Well, we know that he was running guns to Syria, but nobody wants to admit it. The Republicans certainly don't want to admit it. In their minds, the big crime that Hillary committed was that she didn't do enough to protect the mercenaries that were running guns to terrorists in Syria. So yeah, those were bogus investigations as well.
Okay, so the end game of this whole Mueller investigation, which is culminating, I assume you would feel it's culminating in these unable to enforce indictments, is solely to undermine the Trump presidency.
Oh no, I can explain why these 13 indictments came out when they did, because of the pressure being put on him by Congress and the Nunes memo and other things like that. People are starting to realize that there's no reason at all for Mueller's office to exist. He's been looking for a year, digging, hasn't found shit even remotely related to Trump. And so people realize now that there isn't a single thing that he's done that couldn't have been done by the DOJ or FBI. Not even one thing.
So let me just ask one more question. Could he produce evidence that if he produced substantial evidence that showed that the Trump campaign and or Trump himself colluded or at least was in communication with Russia during the campaign?
Well, he was.
That was incontrovertible.
They were in communication.
No, I mean, in communication in an illegal way, in offering not yet having won the election, but saying if I do win, then you'll get these special privilege. I'll be easy with you. We won't talk about.
Hang on a second. If he said I win, if I win, I'm gonna take off the sanctions or something like that. Is that what you're saying?
Or if I win, if the both the House and the Senate unanimously approve to reinforce some sanctions, and then I'm going to just not move forward with that. If he were to, which happened,
or something, yeah, I would say that's good, and that was his pre-existing view prior to running for it.
But I just want to be clear that for you, the investigation seems to be a hoax and seems to be pointless, because even if it found that there was collusion or there was communication with the intent to provide Russia with some benefit, and if Russia helped him win, if that showed to be true, you wouldn't care, that it wouldn't matter. And so that I can
depends on if we're using the definition of collusion, because that keeps switching. Whenever the collusion leads back to Hillary, that's no longer collusion. That's just political.
Well, let's just focus on if Trump talked to, let's just put it in the easiest terms. If Trump had a phone call with Putin and said, if you help me win, I will give you X, X, and X.
Yeah.
And Putin says, okay, if there's evidence, we have that conversation recorded. Mueller finds it. You hear about it.
Well, what crime would that be in your opinion? Like what specific?
That's collusion. I mean, that's illegal. You can't do that. You can't offer favor as an American citizen to gain political power. That's treason. That's treason.
When Hillary specifically asked for the endorsement of other
no, we're not talking about Hillary. Hillary didn't win. We're not talking about that. I'm asking you a question.
Is this collusion or not? When Hillary specifically asked for the endorsement of foreign leaders, is that collusion?
The endorsement is different.
If you guys support my candidacy, I will sign on to the Paris Climate Accords, or something like that. Is that collusion in your view, or what is that exactly? Is that a crime? Like, what should be done about it? I don't get it.
I'm not sure. She didn't win the presidency, so I haven't thought much about what.
I mean, surely. I'm not saying that there's an actual trolley that's going to run over 5 people, but surely you can answer a trolley problem question.
I don't think that would qualify as collusion. Now, if she said, "I will sign on to the Paris Accords if you hack the GOP and then release all their emails,"
so yes, in that scenario, if it was the case that Trump and Putin had a phone call and like Trump knew about that the Russian hackers were hacking into the DNC, he's like, yeah, if you release these emails, then I'm gonna pull the sanctions off. If it was something like that, then yes. And
that would matter.
In that case, yes.
All right. And if they have that same conversation and instead of hacking the emails, if you employ a department of cyber experts that go on and try to influence the election in a certain way, are you going
in that case, I would say, okay, there was merit to this whole thing. Yeah, then it wasn't
okay.
If that was the case.
So we're halfway there then. We're halfway to finding merit. So we know that the Russians existed. We know that we know that Russia exists. We know that Russia tried to influence the election. At least somebody who is Russian. We'll just say that.
Mueller asserts that, but no.
Yeah, say Mueller asserts that, and I'm going to assume that if he's making that assertion, he at least has circumstantial evidence or some evidence that's convincing enough for him to make that. So we're halfway there. So we're halfway to where you're saying that would not be a hoax. So I'm glad to find out that.
No, but I mean, you're saying we're halfway, but that's like saying we're halfway to proving that Noah's flood is real because we found evidence of a flood somewhere at some point in history. It's like, no, actually, we're halfway to proving that it's bullshit.
Okay, so as long as there's no direct connection to Trump, even if Russian undeniably influenced the campaign, then you're not worried about it.
Nobody has shown that the Russian government was involved in any of this. Mueller hasn't even asserted that to be the case.
Okay.
So,
I assume that now I'll have to go back and read the 37 pages. I was pretty sure that was asserted in there, but I'll have to I'll take your word for it if you're saying that it
we
wasn't.
can do a round
But,
two if you want. I have time.
well, it's midnight, 12:15 here.